so housekeeping stuff. Many of you have been on our webinars before. Yes, we're recording this. Yes, we will send you out the recording. If not this afternoon, then by first thing tomorrow. It just depends how long Zoom takes to kind of consolidate it and get us the link. When you have questions, hit the Q&A button on your screen, not the chat that you're using right now, because when you use the chat, invariably we lose track of your question. If you put it in the Q&A button, it actually serves it up in front of us and we can't help but answer it. And if we don't answer it, then you can know that we're specifically ignoring you and your question because we had to like click an X to get rid of your question. So that's where you should put all the questions you want to make sure that we ask. Okay, and with that, let us dive in. Why you're here, why we're here. Here's what we do, PSG. We all work for PSG. We do fundraising consulting. We do annual appeal management for a whole bunch of large Catholic dioceses. We do outsourced Razor's Edge database administration. We do fundraising automation. We work for the most amazing clients all over the country. And what we really love to do is innovate, try new things, and then share it with the world, which is what we're doing here today. And when I say we, I mean Stacy and Austin, who do all of the innovating and thinking. And then Mr. Mankey and I just get to join them on webinars where they explain all of the cool stuff that they're doing. This is our firm. We are small and mighty. There's, I think, 15 of us. This is us curling, which is the state sport of Minnesota. And Mr. Mankey made us do that when we went and visited him last summer. It's a whole lot of fun. This is us standing like a senior prom shot in a Breckenridge cabin where we did some strategic planning. That is who we are. We're so glad that you're here with us today. Many of you are here because you're actually a client of one of the products that we have, which is called Ask Genius. Mr. Mankey leads that for our team. We're not getting into it a ton today. The only thing I'll share is if you're not using it, you should check it out. It's very helpful for any nonprofit that is sending out direct mail or doing an appeal, and you need to set custom ask amounts. Those things circled on your screen. You need to set those ask amounts. Ask Genius is the tool that does that. Syncs up with your database, sucks in all the data, gives you the option to be aggressive or conservative or run split tests, and then it generates all those ask strings for you. You'll raise a ton more money. If you're not using it yet, make sure to give it a shot. Okay, topic at hand. Stacy, you're up first. Fundraising automation. We hear a lot about it. What the heck is it? Explain as if I am a 4-year-old child. What is fundraising automation?
So there are a lot of new tools out right now. Our current favorite is Microsoft Power Automate. It's just like a big kind of holding cell where you can plug all of your things into, right? So Power Automate can connect to Razor's Edge and get your donor data, and then it can connect that to the rest of the world. So you can use your donor data to send emails, to assign yourself tasks, to create documents, or you can do things the other way. You can get information from forms or documents or whatever it is and feed that back into Razor's Edge. So you can make all of this work happen without ever having to touch it.
So it's a connector. Automation in many, or at least Power Automate specifically, it's a universal dock that connects Razor's Edge and Blackbaud to other things. Is that dramatically oversimplifying it?
No, that sounds exactly like what it is.
What about, and from that you can do a whole bunch of amazing things, and we're going to talk about some of our fun things today. Let me already ask a question I know people ask. You mentioned Razor's Edge and Blackbaud. What about what if you're on Salesforce or Virtuous or Bloomerang or anything else?
Most of our kind of your modern fundraising databases have API connections and can be connected to through these kinds of automation tools. I don't know right off which of them have connectors in Power Automate off the top of my head. But there are also things out there like Zapier, that's another similar connector, and there's just tons of options. So most things can connect to most things now, and you can possibly do it yourself.
Yes, and today we're going to talk a whole bunch about how you do this yourself. We're going to talk about how we build things. There are some super smart people out there we know through user groups, and maybe if you went to Blackbaud's Dev Days, you saw some of this stuff. This is a whole lot of fun to play around with. There are people doing some amazing things with it. The reason we bring up Razor's Edge and Blackbaud so much is because that's what we know, right? That's what most of our clients use. We are, again, when I say we, Stacy and Austin are the smartest Razor's Edge people that I've ever met in my life, among a group of people at PSG who are also pretty brilliant at Razor's Edge. That's how we got into this. We know Razor's Edge inside and out. We taught ourselves automation and how to do this. That's where we come from. There may very well be a firm out there who's the exact same thing for Salesforce for nonprofits, right? Or something else. So we don't, we stay in our lane. We know exactly what we do well. There's probably others that do it. So if you're on a different system, take heart. If it was built at any point in the last few years, it probably has APIs. You can probably do a lot of this stuff with Zapier or even Power Automate. The way we look at it in the tool that we branded when we do this for clients, we call it Automate Genius. The short version is just it's we like it because automation lets you put in less effort, you being the database administrator, the executive director, the development director, and in return you get a lot bigger output, right? That's what automation does. It's a little lever that lets you work faster, smarter, easier, get rid of a whole bunch of annoying parts of your job and headaches and just automate them away in a way that feels really cool and fun and fancy. So that's what it is. Stacy, how? All right, give me more. How does it work? What do you need to know? If you're going to build an automation, what do you need to do?
You have to think of all of the steps, right? You can't just tell the robot to make a sandwich because it doesn't know what a sandwich is and it doesn't know where the peanut butter lives, right? So you have to tell it the knives are in the first drawer and the peanut butter is in this cupboard, and first you have to take off the lid, right? You have to tell it every single step and every decision that it has to make. Like, do you want grape jelly or strawberry? Like, and how do we know which of those to choose? So you have to think of every tiny, tiny step. Your brain makes millions of decisions every day. And so you have to find the 600 that you that you take to do a task and teach those to the computer. So
It's like teaching a toddler something, only more complicated. Is it something, Stacy Austin? Does it get better in time? So the first time you do it, you're like, oh, I'll teach this robot how to make a sandwich, and you skip 1,000 steps, and you're like, okay. Does it get easier as you
it
do it?
definitely gets easier in time. And having database skills puts you way ahead of the game anyway, because there's so many things that you do when you're working in Excel or Razor's Edge or any of those things where you have to think logically and think in order. So yeah, everybody on this call is already several steps down the road of kind of learning how to teach a computer to do things, for sure.
If you're here today, then you're in a better spot than most. Austin, would you agree with that? Does it get easier?
Yeah, I think it's like the more you try it out and the more you learn things, the more you learn to recognize sort of those micro decisions that you're making across the board all the time. So like we always say in Power Automate, the number of steps you think it will take, you need to like double or triple that.
Yep.
Um, but
Yeah. If you are a person who doesn't like to make lists, are you going to be any good at this? Is it
yeah.
possible?
Possible.
Yeah, it's still
Possible.
possible. We all have different strengths and weaknesses. People that make lists or can think analytically are probably going to be one step ahead.
Very diplomatic, Austin. Well done. Okay, so we talked about what it is. We use Power Automate and we use Razor's Edge and Blackbaud. That's the world we live in. But in general, fundraising automation is a connector. It lets you do lots of stuff. We described how you do it, which is you think step by step by step, ad nauseum, thousands of steps for something that in your head is only 3 steps. Let's share examples. Here's what I want to do. Stacey, I want to show cool examples of what we're doing with it, and then I want to get to the topic at hand where we talk about like this digest email that we're so proud of. Okay, so the two biggest examples we get asked about all the time. What can you do with automation? This is the one that kind of brings people in the door because they hear, oh my gosh, I heard you did this for XYZ organization. How do we do it? Imagine you are a development director or a major gift officer. You work in a portfolio, you're at a nonprofit, you go into work in the morning, you open up your laptop, and in Outlook, you sit here and you see that you've got 6 or 7 emails already drafted for you. You go and you click on one of them, it opens up the email, and it's this, and it says, hey, John, I saw you made the gift to the appeal. It came through last night to the annual fund. That's amazing. Hey, I think this is the 8th year in a row that you've given. That's so great, John. I personally see you. I know how often you've been giving. I'm acknowledging you. You're fantastic. That is an automation. That is something that we have built that we're doing for so many clients across the country because it just makes life easier. There's nothing about this that a really good major gift officer, development director, like doesn't already want to do, and it's nothing that they're not capable of doing. But what automation does is it lets them skip the 90% of the task and just get right to the heart of it. We can serve it up on a platter for them where they come in, they look, let's say there's 5 drafts every morning. They click on an email and they read it. And if they don't think it's a good fit, or they just delete it, no harm done. If they know the person, they personalize the message. They add a little note at the top, say, John, hey, by the way, it was great to see you at the swim meet at the pool the other day. You're good to see your kids. Congratulations, whatever it might be. And then you click and you send it out. This is my favorite example of automation because at PSG we have sort of frontline fundraisers. We have a whole bunch of really database brilliant people. For the frontline folks who are not gifted at Razor's Edge, which is myself, this is a game changer. The idea that I could have someone draft these emails for me and serve them up on a platter so that in 5 minutes I can crank out 10 meaningful emails to donors, that's a total game changer for me. When Stacy and Austin first rolled this out, I still remember, I'm like, I can't believe that you've built this. I said, we're going to go sell this to everybody in the world. This is going to be a game changer. And it's been true, right? It's been pretty incredible what you can do. And the types of emails as well, right? So it's not just that example with John. It could be you set up an automation to look inside of Razor's Edge for somebody that made an increase in their gift, right? Year over year increase, or maybe it's somebody's birthday. The milestone gift, I used that example before about the 8th year in a row, but you should have automations set up so that anytime somebody makes a gift and it is their 10th, 25th, 50th, 100th gift, whatever it might be, you should get an email. You shouldn't just get an alert, which you can do easily, and we'll talk about that. You should have it draft an email for you, just waiting for you to send out, because that is incredibly meaningful. I was with a bunch of our clients in Dallas last week, and we shared some examples of clients that have been using these and sending these out to donors, and just the heartfelt notes they got back from donors that are like, oh my gosh, thank you for recognizing, how long we've been giving. I can't believe it's been that long. It just turns into something pretty great. Libunts and Cybunts automation is wonderful for this. Look and find people who've given a year ago and they haven't yet given this year. Draft an email, serve it up to somebody to send, or they joined a new giving tier, their first time donor, et cetera, et cetera. So that's one really big example of what automation can do. We've done entire webinars on this. I think Rob, probably if you want to share in the chat, we have whole webinars where we've talked about this specific email automation. The other big one, as our thoughts move on from summer and we think about Thanksgiving and Christmas and year end, let's talk about tax statement letters. Austin put in years of her life building this flow, and it's pretty great. It's pretty darn great. So this is, you have to run your tax letters at the end of the year, or at the start of the year, I should say. Austin built an automation so that you can do that, right? You can create one that has all the gifts on it, like on the left. You could do a summary on the right. This is cool in its own right that you can click a button and it just churns all these things out. But what's even cooler is that you can now automatically send those statements to donors. Okay, so you could send it in a form like this in the body of an email. You can also use Austin's big brain to create it as a PDF and send it as an attachment if that's something you want to do that's more secure. And all to answer the question that all the DBAs on the line are asking, yes, you can, as you automate this process and automatically send it to donors, you can have it save the PDF to the donors, excuse me, to the donor's record. Those are the big picture examples, right? Tax letters, sending emails, that's what you can do. That's really cool that people are loving about automation. But today, we want to focus in on one thing that maybe is not quite as dramatic, but is equally life-changing. And we're going to talk about the gift digest email, and that's a misnomer too because we're going to talk about notifications and other things. So the top, it looks like this. Stacy, this is an example, right, of a gift digest.
Yes, this is a real life example, in fact, of someone who gets a digest when gifts over $1,000 come in. Every morning he has this email address this email that lists all the donations of $1,000 plus.
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I think Kelly's even on the line. So Kelly, if you love this or hate this, now's your chance to tell people in the chat whether this is something that's helpful to you in your organization or not. So gift digest, automatic email, on the development director shows up, tells me who made a gift yesterday. I'm pretty tickled with that. There's stuff I can do with it. But Stacy, I'll pick on you. Why? I'm going to channel my inner database administrator role. Why in the world would you need to create an automation like this? Can't everybody in the office just go into Razor's Edge and like pull this information on their own?
They absolutely can. Are they going to? Some of them, yeah.
Some of them,
never.
some of them, yes, right? So that's the question. This is the DBA. This is, In a perfect world, everybody goes, they live in Razor's Edge NXT, right? Everybody on your team, from the major gift officers, the development director, the executive director, the DBA says, I've showed you guys how to do this. Why don't you just do it on your own? Why do you ask me for the same report every week? I get it. It's a real debate. So let's talk about the debate first, and then let's talk about how we solve it. There are practical reasons, I think, that why you would want to automate these things instead of just telling everybody, go, look inside of NXT, it's there. So the practical reasons, let's say this is you here on the left. This is the group of people in any given development office who know how to use Razor's Edge, and I say that in a meaningful way, right? Not just log in, but who know what's going on, they understand it. So there may be others in your org chart that you don't want them in your database, right? They can't be trusted in there. Who knows what the heck they're going to do? It could be that it's not their job, and I don't mean that that has negative connotations, right? Somebody saying, "Oh, that's not my job," and maybe there's some of that. Maybe unfortunately, people do work with colleagues who are always, making sure to declare things that aren't their job. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about we work with sophisticated organizations, right, with really high level, you know, executive directors where truly it is not their job to go into Razor's Edge. Like there are people that are getting hired at colleges and hospitals and universities, um, big healthcare foundations. It's just not their job. Their job is to manage an entire giant team, to meet with donors. They're not going to go in and pull their own list. They're just not. And there's also external stakeholders. Stacey, have you worked places where we send reports to like board members and outsiders?
Yep, and even especially like in a higher ed example, if your athletic department has some sort of special appeal for, new tennis courts and they need to know every month what gifts came in because they like to send handwritten notes. There's all sorts of people in your organization that have no business inside of Razor's Edge, but might need some of this information.
Yes. So we firmly fall in this camp of, and I know this is a hot topic at Dev Days, right? There's some longtime advisors who are like, oh, don't do this, just get them inside of Razor's Edge. Of course, in a perfect world, they would all go in there and use Razor's Edge, but that's just not the world we're living in. So these are the practical reasons why you might want to automate something. But even what I would call a realistic reason would be, Austin, have you ever heard this quote about judging a fish by its ability to climb a tree?
No.
Is this new? Am I dropped?
Is this a Midwest thing?
I don't know. I don't know. Stacy,
I
Maggie.
don't know this.
Oh my gosh,
No
this is the
idea.
best.
Teach us, Nick. Teach us.
So yeah, cool. This webinar is helpful for everybody, unlike the digest. But what you really came for was this homespun wisdom. Uh, here's the saying. Everybody has skills, right? Everybody can be a genius in something. Everybody is a genius in something. But if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it's going to spend its entire life, thinking that it's dumb. And that is the point that I would like to make for all the DBAs out there who are in their third, fourth, 100th year of getting angry at their coworkers because they don't care about the database as much as they do, right? Like there are people, and and I get it, but your coworkers have gifts. Some of them, I assume all of them, have gifts, and those gifts may not be living inside of a Razor's Edge. It may not be writing up call notes and reports and making sure they're entering gifts correctly and all the things that we wish that they would do. Their skills may be meeting one-on-one with donors, building connections, writing amazing case statements, right? Drafting copy. It could be any number of things. So let's not measure all of our colleagues by their ability to go inside of Razor's Edge and do things in a sophisticated way. Don't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree. That's what I'm saying. Because number one, they're not going to do it. They are not going to go, if they haven't at this point, they're not going to suddenly become a Razor's Edge expert overnight. And also, it's fun, it's satisfying. Delighting your coworkers is a gift in life, and I get a lot of satisfaction out of it. I know everybody here does too. It's fun to solve it in a meaningful way. It's not fun to yell at your coworker or get indignant when they ask you for the same report for the 700th time in a row. That's not fun. What is fun is finding a way to automate it so that they never have to ask you again, and they love you for it. And it just fits the way that people actually work. Okay, I wanted to go down. I know I took us on a tributary there, but it's important because as I go to these other conferences, like this comes up a bunch. Like, should we automate? Should we not? I understand the principle, the reason of like, no, get everybody inside of Razor's Edge. I fully throw that reasoning away because it's not how the world really works. Let's make it easy for them. So, Stacy, back to the digest. What does it do in email? Like, how often is this in this example? How often is this coming? How is it generated, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, this email comes every day. looks at all the data entry from yesterday. So any gifts added yesterday, it checks if it's $1,000 or more, and then it puts this list together. So this list contains the donor's name, which you'll notice is a link. And speaking of people not going to Razor's Edge, that link goes directly back to Razor's Edge NXT to give that person receiving this email all the information they could ever want about the donor. So we don't put all the information into this email, right? Because that would be insane, but super easy access. They don't even have to search for anything. You just click it and you're there. Constituent ID, that's the constituent ID everybody's used to. So if you are a person who's living in database view, it's easy to look this person up because we can't link to database view. And then the gift amount with the gift type. We can also add a fund there sometimes, depending on your organization's needs. This one has the appeal code and the gift amount. So that also is a link, and that links directly to the gift raisers or the gift at record in Razor's Edge NXT WebView.
So Stacy, when you build this and you connect it to Power Automate, and we're going to talk about how you get started with Power Automate and all that stuff. When you build this, is there like a button that's like, okay, this is for new gifts over 1,000, or this is like you creating, like you making all these decisions, like what data do you want in it, what threshold, is that all that you're doing?
Yep, that's what we do. We have to make all of those kinds of decisions.
Okay, so this could be, let's say there's someone watching this who's like, I don't want to see that. We're a big organization. I just want to see gifts over 10,000. Like that's something they can build.
You can set those thresholds wherever you want. You can have it be gifts with this particular fundraiser, or only gifts to a certain fund, or only, gifts from people that live in Nebraska, or whatever it is.
Yep. I only want to see gifts from people that have heard the expression, don't judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, which thank you, Marcy.
If you're tracking in database.
Yeah, if you're tagging that in the database, then yes, that's possible.
Excellent. Okay, so that's a perfect example. So it has to be in the database. If it's in the database, the sky's the limit. We can serve it up. Okay.
Yep.
This is an email. It could come daily. It could come
weekly, monthly, whatever works.
I just realized I didn't tell when I was in. So Kelly, who's on the line here, when I was presenting this on Monday, he mentioned that he gets his at like 11:30 at night, and he was thinking how evil Stacy and Austin were that they set up this automation to come every night when he's trying to go to bed.
Sorry, Kelly. We can fix that.
We can fix it. Okay, so this is an email version, but it's not just email, right? So Austin, tell me about how you can do this through chat notifications.
Yeah, so there's this technical term in the API called a webhook, but all you need to know about that is it triggers off of an event in the database. So as soon as a gift is added, the flow can trigger off of this webhook, and it will send you a chat channel notification for every gift received that qualifies for the criteria you've set up.
So it may be a client says, you know what I want, like I have a development director who every morning they just want to see a list of the gifts that came in the day before. That might be one use. This might be a different use, right? This might be like a coworker who I want as the gifts happen because I have to go in and like do something. Is that fair?
I'm almost partial to this methodology anyway, because you get notified within 10 minutes of a gift hitting the system, and it's in a chat channel. So if you need to have a conversation with a team member about the gift, you can do that by commenting directly under the notification.
Got it. So there could be, okay, and you could set up any number of channels, right? So there could be just one for you if you just want to get alerted, or it could be like the database gift entry people or something like that. Yep. Do we have clients that use this like for just for plan gifts? Like, because when a gift comes in through plan gift, everybody on the call knows there's like 17 annoying steps you have to do. You have to find the value and then sell it and then notify. Like, is that something people do? Like, just get plan gift notifications? Is that doable?
Yeah, that's totally possible. Just back to the previous point, anything that's tracked in the database, you can use that as a deciding factor in the criteria of a workflow.
So let's say my job, I'm an intern at a nonprofit, and my job is when somebody signs up for the big gala, I go in and, assign them to a table. Like that would be.
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. All right, I'm going to keep grilling you with questions, but I want to ask about this. So this, you mentioned, so the previous example is just like an alert. It's like, hey, a gift came in, you can click on it and go to the donors, constituent. Like now it looks like we're getting a little bit fancier. You'd shared this screenshot with me. So there's like dynamic cards and stuff you can do?
Yeah, so this is called an adaptive card. So you can set it up with whatever formatting you want. And it's very easy to do. You can use a template designer through Microsoft to create them, so you don't have to know code or how to write code to do it. And all we've done is put in some dynamic information, the same as the email digests. And instead of hyperlinks, we've put in buttons. So you can click the button to view the gift, and you can click the button to view the constituent record in WebView.
Awesome. Stacy, you did something cool with this. I don't know if you remember. So we had a client that it was a large Catholic diocese, and they had like different database. They had parish information in a different set, and an issue was keeping track of when people passed away. And Stacy, you set up an adaptive card that would be generated anytime we thought somebody was marked as deceased, and it would send this card on the left. Is that right? So this went to the major, like the higher up federated organization?
Yep. So they had parish data from the small subsidiaries. And if a parish had someone marked deceased, but Razor's Edge had the person marked as living, we put this together and said, hey, you need to go check this out. And the buttons we included here was a search for an obit, to his Razor's Edge record there, and then the data that we got back from the parish system. So
the reason I love this is because most of us are not trusted, right? Like we spend our lives getting our database in order, and we're very wary of any like new things that say, hey, we have some magic tool that's going to automatically categorize everybody the right way. Like this recognizes that this may or may not be accurate, right? Like this data that we got from the parishes in this case. So instead of just automatically going in and marking them deceased and then screwing up the salutation, it serves it up in a way that lets you make your job easier, right? Like, okay, let's look at the obituary. Is that
I
right?
love that about this because yes, it would be possible to automate it in such a way that we just said, okay, we found this person with the same name that's deceased here. Let's just mark him deceased. We could do that, but yes, as a person who makes money by sending out letters, you don't want to mark people deceased unless they are, and you definitely want to get their widow's name correct. So yes, I love that this can just give you all of the information you need to investigate and make the decision yourself.
And that's how I would recommend for everybody on here that's like, about to become a super user in automation. Start small, start manageable. Like this is a great example. Like build an automation that makes your life easier. Don't try and replicate from start to finish that because it's going to go haywire. Just get rid of the boring stuff. Like with the email example, don't automatically have those emails send out because you're going to screw something up and it's going to, I mean, it just will. We all will. And you're going to send out a whole bunch of emails you don't want to send out. Have it draft the email and serve it up for you to be the one to click send. That's the secret that we found in really getting the most out of automation and seeing how cool this can be. Let's talk about, and reminder, if you have questions, put them in the
We
Q&A.
did have one in the chat. How
Oh,
does it search for the obit?
Oh, it just builds a link. So that the link on that button is something like it just is a concatenate that says Google, plus obituary plus guy's name plus his city, I think. So then when you click it, it smashes all that stuff together and then you end up on the Google like search results page.
awesome. That's so cool. Okay, so adding action. So we talked about the gift digest and notifications. We're going to go back there, but what do we mean when we're saying like adding? So this is like now we're going to build on it, right? So we explain what it is, and now as soon as you roll that out, your fellow coworkers are going to say, "Hey, can you make it do X, Y, Z?" So what are we talking about here?
So this is really similar to the gift one, except this has to do with actions. And it could also be based on gifts, right? We could assign people actions because we know that X gift came in and we want somebody on our team to make a phone call, right? So we can put that action into Razor's Edge automatically and then send them an email. So when they click on the link on the donor's name, they come here to the donor page, right? And then if they click on that phone call link, that goes to the action page that we've created. And it, might have some notes about what you're supposed to say. And the phone number was in the digest, so you can be already on the phone and then you click that mark complete button and type in what you talked to her about and click save and it's done.
So just as I think about, I mean, in many ways, this is for the people that are great at Razor's Edge as an organization or whatever database you're on, this is like a shortcut you can give to everybody else who's not amazing at it, like to get them to do what they need to do in the systems, but like you can make it easier. Is that
Yep,
oversimplifying?
it's not oversimplifying. That's exactly what it does. It takes a lot of those steps that gift officers get annoyed by or bogged down by because there's so many things in Razor's Edge. There just are. So this puts the handful of things that they need right at their fingertips. So it literally takes seconds to put in your notes for this action that you've been asking them to do for months and months and years, right? But if you send them that link, they click 2 buttons to get it in there, and then it's done.
I can tell you, as again, if we divide ourselves between like the internal database people and like the frontline fundraiser, like I would be so much more likely to make the phone call if I got it. I mean, that's just the way we work. Like we work through our emails. Like our emails become our task list, you know, in or increasingly our chat. But just if you make it easy like this for me, I'm gonna do it, right? If you send me a monthly reminder that I have to go into log into NXT and then look to see what tasks I have, like I'm gonna be annoyed. I'll probably still do it, but not as quickly. Okay, super cool. So that's we send digests to alert people on when gifts happen and all sorts of stuff, and now we can send digests that have like actual hyperlinks. Let's talk about a couple other ways to use this, other ways to use digest and notifications. We had a whole big list. I'll put them up there, and then Austin, anything on here that you want to talk about that's been pretty cool for our clients that you've liked?
I really like the completes a pledge one because a lot of times you aren't finding that out until the end of a quarter, or if you only check this a couple times a year. And it's such a nice touch when you can reach out to someone and say, hey, you finished a pledge, or you can let the fundraiser who's that person is in their portfolio know that that pledge was completed in entirety, which I feel is like always a struggle with pledges anyway to get them paid off in full.
And you mentioned portfolio. So like when you're sending these digests, the earlier example is like the development director, executive director gets a list, but like you could also send these like as I own a portfolio of 200 names, and I could only get notifications on stuff that happens for people inside my portfolio.
Yes. And you can do that dynamically, right? You don't have to set up a flow just for John Smith, the fundraiser. You can set up a flow that takes into account all of the fundraisers in your system and generates digest just for them.
Creates all the digests up to a point, and then the last thing is okay, who is assigned to this person, and then the last step is it shepherds that email
It
off to
splits
that.
it off and sends it off to the right
Oh,
person.
that's super cool. So as you can, sorry, Stacy, anything on here that you love a lot?
Yeah, I wanted to mention that recurring gift one. So we work with a lot of organizations that do annual appeals, and we had one that was finding that people would set up a recurring gift one year, and then next year when the appeal came out, they heard about it, and went on and made a second recurring gift. So they had 2 running at the same time, right? So we set up an automation for them that finds when new recurring gifts are made, it checks if that donor already has an active one, and then it sends someone an email that says, hey, you need to check this guy. He has 2 active recurring gifts. So there's bunches of possibilities for things like that that aren't even really data entry errors. That's just a weird thing that happens, but it was happening there enough that it made sense to do that. But there's a million things like that if you have, mismatches in gift coding or things like that that you know to look for, you can just send yourself a note that you need to go check something. So
It sounds like if once you learn how to do the automation side of thing, like that only has to pop up one time, and then you're like, oh, I'm going to build an automation to like alert me, and then again, you can set that part of your brain aside and not have to think about it all the time. Just let the automation tell you.
100%, because before automation, every time it's time to run recurring gift payments, I would have had to run a query to see, does anyone have 2? Oh yeah, there's 3 of them. I need to go figure out what's going on with them. And then, that's part of your task twice a month or 3 times a month or however many times you do this, and you have to remember to do it, and you have to do it right, right? So
Yep.
now it just appears in your email if it's a problem. Otherwise, you just don't have to worry about it ever again. So
Which is helpful. So, Stacy, Mr. Mankey and Austin won't understand this, but you and I are old, right? And we're getting old, and our brains don't work like they used to, and we don't remember all the things we used to. They're still young and fresh faced, but like this is helpful, right? Is if it's something for us old folks, like we can just set an automation. We like that. Okay.
love that.
Mankey, you'll get there. Right now, his mind's a steel trap. He remembers every task. Let's talk about where this gets really useful. Digests are helpful, and you can see how this would happen. We roll out the digest, and suddenly everybody's like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. This is what I always wanted. I was always bugging my DBA to send me a list, and now I just get it every morning. and then it moves to, oh man, I can click on a link and I can do an action. I can like make a phone call. And earlier we had talked about the emails, where this has all led and where it gets really useful and really cool is take it to its natural conclusion. You get this example. This is Austin put this together. It's a digest to someone saying, hey, this donor just made a big gift. Here it is. You can click on the link to see the gift and everything. But look what's over there on the right, right? So this is a daily digest plus a draft and email link, which means I'm a major gift officer. This person's in my portfolio. They just made a gift. I think, oh, I better send a note to Roy Kent. Well, now I can just click on the dang link in there, and what happens is that it's all up there, right? The email is encoded in that link that we're sending. It opens up natively in whatever I use for my email, right? So it's a mail to link. This is no longer Power Automate world connecting things behind the scenes. This is a good old fashioned mail to link that generates an email to that donor thanking them for that specific gift. Okay. This is a really, really big deal that we're still just scratching the surface of. So imagine a world, again, where you're a major gift officer and your job is to communicate with donors. It's not just us having to run automations and see who made their 8th gift, 10th gift, 50th gift, and all the other fun stuff. Now, when they make their gift, we can send you the notification and give you the link. So you click that link, it's already pre-drafted, you customize it. There's a whole bunch of fun possibilities with this. Think of, Austin, Stacy, you've worked in organizations that have volunteers that do get solicitations, right? You're running a campaign. Suddenly, you're extending beyond the razor's edge people in your office to volunteers or to board members, right? A board member gets an alert that their friend made a gift or their friend registered for an event or whatever it might be, and it can include a link that they can send from their own. This is a pretty big deal. And then Austin, am I correct that it does save that correspondence?
Yeah, so it preemptively makes an action in the system that records that this person was a part of the draft for their particular gift.
So where this has taken us, so we're just a humble bunch of fundraising consultants that really nerdy about Razor's Edge, and then we learned about automation. We kind of kept jumping into it, and then we ended up providing some services there. For us, this is a big deal because it's actually taken us now beyond Power Automate. So we built a lot of stuff in Power Automate, but now we're building on top of that, like these things like the ability to send emails. We think you will end up heading down that road as well. Let's share a couple more examples of things that can help the internal DBA, because I always focus on the external stuff like emails. I want to talk about the stuff in the trenches, and then Stacey, I want you to explain what people can do if they're like, hey, how do I get started in this? And then we'll go take a bunch of questions, okay? All right, so examples from the trenches is another one of our clients. Again, we work with a lot of the largest Catholic dioceses in the country. Stacey, did you build this or did Austin build this?
I built this one.
Stacey built it and then the rest of us branded it. The magic button, tell us what do we have going on here?
So in database view, there is a button in a constituent record that you can, I think it's in the constituent menu that you can click constituent, load from defaults from something, right? And then you can get all of your name formats put in, right? Without having to do them all one at a time. So this organization has a whole bunch that they wanted to create so that they know they have a joint and an individual, formal and informal for everybody. So, so instead of entering all bunch of those by hand, you click this button and this sends the information to Power Automate, which then checks if the person has a spouse and if they have a certain title. And then it decides based on those things, right? All the stuff that you can decide at the just with a glance, looking at the record, the computer figures all that out and adds all of the name formats and all the addresses and salutations that you need for this record.
So the automation at its core is you give, here's what we know about the donor, like the first name, last name, everything else. The automation is what's looking at those things and saying, okay, based on that, they have a spouse. So here's the Mr. and Mrs., here's the Dear John and Sue. That's the automation. And then the trick here is that you created a button that launches that automation.
The button lives in WebView, so it basically mimics what that load defaults thing does in database view, but it exists out in WebView and can be used by anybody in your organization that has access to change constituents.
Oh, that's super cool. So this is the solution for anybody that has, if you have tasks, which we all do inside a database that you're constantly doing and it's annoying and it's like, boy, this is really screaming out for it to be automated or something like, this is how you do that. You run an automation, you create a little button to do it for you. Okay.
Yep. It's really simple.
I don't think we have it on here, but there's something recurring gifts back to that. Converting old recurring gifts to new recurring gifts. Does that ring a
Yeah.
bell? That's
Yeah.
something.
So there is a way to now use automation to, if you're looking at a recurring gift record in WebView, you all know what I'm talking about. There's a button that says convert this to automatic processing. There's a way that you can actually automate that button to find all your recurring gifts that are eligible for automatic processing and convert them over. Thanks to our dear friend Matt Thacker, who invented that flow.
Yes, speaking of a big brain out there, Matt does wonderful work on all this stuff. Okay, a couple more examples. So some ideas that can help with data cleanup. So sticking with internal, we've got, what do we got? We have 7 of them here. Austin, anything that jumps out at you that you want to highlight?
I really like the duplicate constituents one. Like it's often an overlooked thing. Like unless you're dedicating time to it every week, it kind of falls by the wayside. And in this instance, it would take any new constituents added in the last 24 hours, take their information and search it against the system to see if anyone else has that same information. And we've had a couple clients take this like one step further to say, can you make sure that anyone that has a relationship with the original constituent doesn't appear on the digest? It's purely like unconnected, same information people. And it turned out to be such a cool automation in
Love
the
it.
end. And it's really helping them find duplicate constituents they wouldn't have found otherwise.
Love it. And doing the other things on here, I mean, filling in fields, validating new emails, marking records with a blank address, like all that is helpful. So this the hygiene stuff, right? The hygiene stuff you normally do on your own. Let's automate it. In terms of gift processing, Stacy, what do we want to talk about here?
Automatically running donor acknowledgement letters, I love. I know that since we lost the Microsoft connection inside of database view, it's been back to the old days of exporting files and running mail merges, and some of you have many of those, and it's quite time consuming. So automating those things, we have clients now who literally just get an email once a week or once a day or however often they need it with a Word document full of all the letters that need to be printed and signed and mailed. So it just saves an absolute ton of time and can really, in a lot of cases, do everything more efficiently and more even in a better way than you were doing it before, and give you things in the output that you want, either in, separate files for different letterheads based on fund, or one big file for the president to sign, or whatever, whatever it is that you need, you can do anything.
Yep. Yep. Okay.
You can also send emails automatically. So if someone has an email address, you can send the acknowledgement letter out automatically, and that ends up saving you money and postage and time, of course.
Just like the tax letters, and also you can branch it, right? A lot of our clients do that. So they say, hey, I want to send a gift. If it's above $500, I want to serve it as a draft and let me look at it before we send it. But if it's below that, fine. Like it's, just send it out automatically. You can branch it again. We have a whole webinar about that. Thank you, Rob, for including that in there. Okay, so let's talk about how to get started, and then let's give people a chance to ask some Q&A. Megan just asked a good question that we'll tackle in about 60 seconds here. Okay, how to get started. So we're big automation fans. I love, somebody made the comment about Austin's famous. You guys all know that, right? Like, so everybody knows Austin's famous, and like she's on the Razor's Edge forum, and whenever somebody has a question, it's almost invariably Austin's like, well, yes, you could do that through Power Automate. Because if you've been on this webinar, you see you can. Like, the sky is a limit. So that's not just a copy and paste. Austin really doesn't mean it every time she says it. You can do that through Power Automate. We're big fans of it. But how do we get started? So we're big fans of it. What do? You are all self-taught. So Stacy, where do you go if you're watching this and thinking this is cool? How do I learn more?
Yep. So the first thing you'll need is, in order to use the Razor's Edge connections in Power Automate, is you do need to have a Power Automate premium license or a Power Automate per user license. So you need to go to Microsoft and make sure you have nonprofit status, which you probably do. Check with your IT department. If you're not a Microsoft organization, you will need to get Office 365. And there's usually pretty low cost pricing. Oh yeah, $14 a month should not be anything that's going to, hopefully not be anything that's going to be totally prohibitive. And then the Power Automate license itself is under $4 a month for nonprofit pricing. And those prices are at TechSoup. Again, your IT department will know how to do that.
Okay. Um, Power Automate license, we get this question a lot. So let's say you have lots of major gift officers and you want to send each of them a different digest, or you want to draft emails from them. Does that mean $4 for each person or not?
No, typically you're going to be able to get away with one Power Automate license for your organization, depending again on your size and how many people are building. So whoever is building flows is going to need a Power Automate license. People that are just receiving digest emails or something like that will not need their own license.
And let's jump. Megan Blackburn asked a question about Google Gmail stuff like that. Like, what? So here it looks like we have to have Office 365, but what if you're just like that's what we use to email, and that's not the. I guess talk about that.
Yep. So you can definitely connect email and all the Google Suite things in Power Automate also. So you could probably get away without an Office 365 license. You'd have to probably experiment with it because you can do Google Docs and access Google Sheets and all of those things in Power Automate also. So all of that will also connect. I don't know, Austin, if we've done any acknowledgement letters in Google. I don't think I have.
I feel like it is possible though, in some way. Dan Snyder, another heavy hitter in the Power Automate world, works in a Google
Yeah, I'm sure
a
he's
school
done
that
it.
uses like Google Suite for everything. And he's talked about it online in the Blackbaud community forum a bunch. So you could probably go search there and see what he said about it.
Yep.
Emily's question, and I think it's what I just tried to ask, but she asked it more elegantly. Is anyone running a flow need a license, or can you use one license to run multiple flows?
You can use one license to run multiple flows. So anyone who is kicking off an automation will need the license, but really that is probably going to be a very small number, 1 or 2 people at your organization.
Your database administrator is going to be kicking off the flows, whether it's drafting emails for major gift officers, development directors, whatever it might be. But that person kicking off the flow, whether you do it yourself or you have a company like us kind of build the first one for you, you can probably get it done with one.
Yep.
What about the power? So like free trial, right? You can dip your toe into this. Is that right?
Yep, I forgot about this. So I think it's a 30-day trial, which is great, and you'll be able to use all of the premium connectors. So if you're on the fence, or even if you want to try it out and your IT team is slow, definitely get signed up for that free trial and play around. There is so much stuff in there. The templates are awesome. There are even Razor's Edge templates, but they're like just looking through the template library here is going to give you just a ton of ideas for fun things you can do even outside of Razor's Edge.
Awesome. Okay, so that's a place to go. Flows.microsoft. So sorry, back up. Make sure your nonprofit is registered as a nonprofit, right, with Microsoft. Then you go to Flow and you make sure you have the licenses and stuff you need. Start playing around. You see the templates. It's going to blow your mind. You're just going to start noodling on it, and it's going to be frustrating a little bit at first because there's going to be so much overwhelming things that you could do. Pick something small, automate it. It'll be the happiest day of your year, except maybe your birthday, and then you're going to start automating more and more things. Stacy, how long have you been doing this?
Since sometime in the fall of 2020.
I think that's right. Yep.
Yeah.
And Austin, same, right?
Awesome.
February 2021.
Yep.
I saw a Blackbaud webinar and it blew my mind, and then we were off to the races.
I shared this, and we'll get to Q&A right now. I shared this, I think, at BBCon. So how we all got involved, how Stacy got involved. Linton Myers at Blackbaud called us and scheduled a meeting because PSG in our consulting world, I think we're the biggest consumer of Razor's Edge. Like everybody outsources their database to us, so we're just in there a lot, and we got really smart people. Linton called and gave us a demo, said, "Hey, we have the certified connector coming up. You should check it out." And that's all it was. And we had what, Stacy, 45 minutes or an hour with him, and we hung up the phone and we're like, okay, stop everything we're doing. Like we're diving into this. And like Stacy was our guinea pig because she's so smart and she dove in and learned all this herself the hard way and has since been teaching people. Okay, so that's how you do it yourself. You can also, final slide of the day, if you want, we can also build this stuff for you. So if you've been to our webinars, you know that we are never a hard sell on anything. We like to learn stuff and then we teach people. But we also know there's organizations that are like, I don't have time to learn this, or we're too big, or our IT department scares me. I don't want to talk to them. Like any number of things, you can have us do this for you. So we're building tons of flows all the time. We're booked out for a couple months, but we can get you in there probably this fall if there's something that you saw that you wanted to check out. I'm going to put a poll here if you want us to talk more. Here we go. So if you want to learn more about Automate Genius, which is what Stacy and Austin do for clients. So we'll always put up stuff here and we'll share what we learned. But if you want us to actually get in there and build the flow, like come in, build the flow, draft emails for my people, or help me solve this technical report that we're doing, create some digest, whatever it might be, let us know. We'll follow up. We'll give a demo to your org. We can do it for you forever, or you can have us build the first one on your system, and then you can run with it from there. We're pretty open about all of that. And now we're going to get to Q&A. So I'll leave that up for a minute and let people self-select in if they want. If you have questions, ask them in the Q&A button. We will get to them, and I'll give it a shot. Austin, go ahead.
We have a question in the chat. So what do you lose if you were to create flows through the trial? And all the trial really does is it lets you access premium connectors, which is why you need that elevated Power Automate license. So you wouldn't necessarily lose the work that you put in during the trial. You would just lose access to the premium connector that you need for Razor's Edge.
Got
So
it.
if you had any Razor's Edge flows in there, it would stop working. But then if you bought a license, you could turn it back on and it would work. So you shouldn't lose anything.
Stacy, talk about working with IT on this. Like, what's the hang up going to be? Like, that sometimes is a thorny issue. What is IT going to want to know before their development team starts messing around with automation?
I think the first question is usually security, right? Why are we taking information out of Razor's Edge and putting it somewhere else? And where on earth are you putting it? What are you doing? And so the fact that it's a Microsoft product and that everything is pretty safely inside Microsoft. I mean, you're already putting those letters that you're creating on your SharePoint, right? So Power Automate has the exact same security as all of the other Microsoft products, which is obviously very good, right? So, and in addition to that, there's ways to build fences around your Power Automate flow so that only certain connectors can be used together too. So you can say, I don't ever want any flows with Twitter connections to be connected to anything in Razor's Edge. So you can keep things apart if there are things that you need to just ensure don't touch each other. So there's lots of good things to do there. Honestly, most IT departments are getting more receptive to this. I've noticed in the last probably 6 months because they're all playing around with Power Automate too. So they're a great place to start because they might want to do a project for you to get to play around with it. So
Excellent. I've noticed that as well. In the early days, it was pulling teeth, right? Like the development office would be really excited about it, and the IT, that's where all good ideas go to die, right? They'd be like, oh no, we're not going to connect anything. But it is Microsoft's trustworthy, and we can help walk you through that if this is something that you want to do for your organization.
yeah.
Any other roadblocks that we've run into? Has there ever been a client that's asked us to do an automation where like there's something that we couldn't do, other than like if they didn't have it in the database, we can't like.
So there are still some API limitations, right? So there's things that you can't see in WebView that exist in your database. I think tributes is one of the ones. Pledge payments are still difficult to deal with. We'd love to do pledge reminders by automation and haven't been able to do that yet, although I think that's getting closer. Same with tributes, right? So all of that stuff will eventually exist in the APIs and be accessible for automation. So there have definitely been things like that it just doesn't exist yet, but it will. And Blackbaud is getting much quicker about building those APIs and things. So yeah, it's all going to be possible.
Good. And
And
we
if you
go
have
ahead.
queue, so if you have queue in database view, you can automate exports out of your database to your FTP folder and have a flow trigger when a new file goes into a folder in your FTP folder. So there are ways to get that database view only data out and into an automation.
Yep. While we're here, so I'm going to have, if Rob doesn't mind, if the question always comes up, hey, maybe a friend shared this webinar with you. If you want to hear what we're doing in the future, you want to make sure you're always aware when we're rolling out some new training. We'll share the newsletter link in the chat so you can sign up. It's called the Ask Genius newsletter, soon to be rebranded just the PSG newsletter, as we have more and more products out there in the world. But that's about once a month, and it's when we always announce, okay, here's what's coming up next. Also, if you have things that you want us to tackle, if there's topics that you want us to dig into, if you're sitting on the Facebook forum and that's something you want to learn more about, we're always open to it, right? Let us know what you want. We'll get Stacy and Austin and the crew here, and we'll do a webinar on it. Question from Marcy, I see. If I have a license and build flows at some point, leave the org. Oh, this is a great question. Stacy, do you mind tackling this one?
Yeah, so a couple of ways to keep that all alive. So you could keep your user account active forever, right? And have IT change the password so you can't get in, right? But it still exists to keep running those flows. You can also share flows between users. So if you shared it with someone else, they could make a copy of it or become the owner of that flow so that it can continue to run. So it's pretty easy, but you do have to remember to do it.
And the way that we operate as well, again, if you can do this on your own, go. I mean, you should be doing it now. You should be racing to automation. You should be doing this for your organization. If you want some help and want somebody to build like that first flow, the way we do it, we're not bringing in anything on our, like, we're building it on your tenant, right, Stacy? So like we go in, you're like, you own the license. So if you're like Seattle University, right, like you own the license, you set up your Microsoft tenant, you give us permission to create the things for you on your license, but you own it, you're in charge of it, you can turn it off, you can mess around with it all on your own.
Yep.
So that, I know that's comforting to some people as well, that you eventually you want to learn this, but right now you just kind of want to speed course for your first one. That's very normal.
Yep.
Okay. Austin, Mr. Mankey, anything we didn't cover here today before I let people go before the top of the hour?
I think we're good.
Just so you all know, we will send out the recording here this afternoon or early tomorrow morning, but it will get out to you as soon as we are able to. Please feel free to share it with your team too, so your coworkers. If this blew your mind and you're like, hey, let's start on this, share it away. Again, Rob posted a link to the newsletter, so share that as well so others can keep updated. But yeah, keep an eye out for the email here soon.
And that's worth mentioning too. So a lot of the times we draw people like ourselves. So we draw the internal, like the nerds, right? The database people. You're in it, you get it. Like your eyes lit up at the, the hygiene queries that will like identify duplicates. Your frontline funders will have an even bigger reaction when they hear that you can draft emails for them, right? And that you can serve up the digest to them. So share that information with them. If you want to hop on a demo, we'll share a link too where we can actually walk you through how we build it on Automate Genius if you want to look at having us build something for you. If you have questions about just how to dive into it on your own, look to the Facebook forum. There's different user groups and all that stuff out there. Okay. All right. So I'm going to let it go from there. We're going to give you a minute back. We appreciate all of you. We'll see you on the next webinar. Look for the email. If you don't see it, it's in your spam folder. All right. Thanks, everybody.